Welcome back to the deep dive. I'm really excited about diving into today's topic. It's all about how to cultivate a love of learning,
Ooh, I like that.
not just for, acing that next exam or
Right.
getting that promotion at work, but for life. Like, how do we become those people who are just always excited
Yeah,
to learn something new?
I love it.
Yeah,
It's a question that I think is increasingly relevant
absolutely.
in today's world. Things are changing so rapidly. And Edutopia, in one of their articles about this very topic, even argues that fostering this love of learning is crucial for setting students up for success. Not just, in the classroom, but in whatever they choose to do.
And it makes sense, right? Like, the more you're open to learning, the more adaptable you are.
Absolutely.
But how do we actually, do that? Is it just like flip a switch and suddenly we're all passionate learners?
I wish it were that simple.
Right.
A lot of our sources for this deep dive point to curiosity as that fundamental driving force. Hogo next, in their article, How to Cultivate a Love of Learning, they have this great line, curiosity is the engine of learning. But they go beyond that. They give some really concrete steps on how to rekindle that childlike sense of wonder that, a lot of us, we lose as we get older.
I love that. So it's not just about having curiosity, it's about nurturing it, almost like a skill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of those techniques that Hogonex suggests?
One that really resonated with me is this idea of questioning assumptions.
Oh, interesting.
They use the example of looking at the sky.
Okay.
We might just see blue, right? But a curious mind is going to ask, well, why is it blue? And that simple question can send you down this rabbit hole of scientific discovery,
Wow.
about things like Rayleigh scattering. And suddenly the everyday becomes extraordinary.
It's true. It's like putting on those curiosity glasses and seeing the world in a whole new light.
Exactly.
Yeah. But what about those of us who feel like we've kind of lost that spark? Can we really, rekindle curiosity as adults?
Absolutely. Open colleges, actually, in their article, 8 Ways to Ignite Passion in Your Students, they argue that curiosity is a skill
Okay.
that you can develop, that you can get better at.
That's encouraging.
Yeah. One of their suggestions is to cultivate wonder by actively seeking out new experiences and new perspectives, new ideas.
Makes sense. If you're just doing the same thing every day,
Yeah.
your brain's not really, getting that stimulation.
Yeah, your mind can kind of stagnate, right?
Totally.
But when you actively seek out novelty, it shakes things up and it kind of, reignites that interest.
And there's so many ways to do that, right? Like, even just in your everyday life,
Absolutely.
picking up a different type of book than you normally would, or
Yeah.
just something to shake things up a bit.
And open colleges even goes as far as to suggest, challenging yourself to learn one new thing every single day.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
A little bite-sized.
A little bite-sized piece of knowledge. Even if it's just, a small fact or a different way of doing something that you've always done the same way.
Yeah.
Just that constant engagement can make a big difference.
Keeps your brain firing, right?
Yeah. Keeps your mind active and open to new information.
Okay, so we're actively cultivating our curiosity. We're seeing the world through those new lenses. What's next on this journey of becoming a lifelong learner?
Well, Hoganex talks about the importance of understanding your individual learning style.
Okay. I've heard about those visual learners, auditory learners,
That's right.
kinesthetic, but it always seems a little too put in a box to me.
Right.
I feel like I use all of those in different ways.
Yeah, it's not about fitting neatly into one category or another. It's more about, Hoganex suggests thinking about how you've learned best in the past.
Okay.
When have you felt really engaged? What methods made the information stick? Did you love classes with lots of visuals, or did you really thrive when you could do hands-on activities?
That makes so much more sense. It's not about the label, it's about self-awareness, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so you understand how you learn best.
Yeah.
You've got that burning curiosity, but we still need some direction, right?
There's where goal setting comes in. Empower Your Journey talks about setting SMART goals, and they're really clear that this isn't just a corporate thing. It can apply to any kind of learning.
Okay. Now, whenever I hear SMART goals, I have to admit, I kind of zone out a little. It
Yeah.
feels very corporate jargony to me.
Yeah.
You give me a real world example of how that applies to personal learning.
Sure. Let's say you're fascinated by ancient Rome, right? Instead of just saying, oh, I want to learn more about Roman history, a SMART goal would be something like, I'm going to read one book about the Roman Empire by the end of next month. It's specific, It's measurable, achievable, it's relevant to your interest, and it has that time frame.
Okay, so it gives you that structure without being, like, too rigid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a roadmap, right?
Yeah, I like that, like a roadmap for your learning journey.
And empower your journey makes a great point. The act of setting and achieving goals, even if they're small goals, reinforces your identity as a learner.
Okay.
It can build confidence, and it gives you that momentum to
Yeah.
keep going.
It's like you get those small wins, and it's like, all right, I can do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you want to keep going.
You're on a roll.
Yeah.
But one thing I always struggle with is motivation. Like, how do we keep that enthusiasm going over time? It can't always be like a forced march,
Okay.
right?
You're absolutely right. And that's where the idea of autonomy comes in.
Okay.
Empower your journey stresses the importance of having choice in what and how you learn.
I like that.
Think about it.
Yeah.
If you're forced to study something you find totally boring, it's
Yeah.
going to be a slog.
Absolutely.
But when you're genuinely interested,
Yeah.
learning becomes a joy.
That makes sense. It's like that story from Cultivating a Love of Learning, a lesson from Bill Gates, right?
Sure.
He loves reading even these dense technical books. If you're passionate, even the challenging stuff can be exciting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And 10 Ways to Inspire a Love of Learning, they take this idea of choice even further and suggest finding ways to, like, weave your passions into what you're learning.
Okay.
So if you love to cook, maybe you learn about the science of baking or the history of different cuisines.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's like finding those intersections between what you already love
Yeah.
and then the world of knowledge.
Exactly.
It's like turning your hobbies into learning adventures.
I love that, turning your hobbies into learning adventures.
That's a good one.
And they also emphasize making learning active, not passive.
Okay, how do you do that?
So instead of just watching a documentary about a historical event,
Right.
maybe you research primary sources, write a blog post about it, create a piece of art inspired by it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's about, like, actually doing something with the information.
Yeah,
Not just taking it in.
exactly. You're
Got-
taking ownership, making it more meaningful. It's not just about absorbing, it's about applying.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about, like, the internal stuff, the curiosity, the learning style, the goals. But where does all this learning take place? Does it have to be in a classroom or a library?
That's a common misconception, and Empower Your Journey really pushes back on that idea.
Okay, I'm curious.
They say the world itself is our
I
classroom.
love that.
No.
But what does that look like in practice?
It's about recognizing learning opportunities are everywhere. A trip to a museum can become a deep dive into art history or anthropology.
Oh, yeah.
Talking to your grandparents can be like a living history lesson.
Yeah.
Even cooking or gardening.
Yeah, those everyday things.
Yeah, can teach you about botany or chemistry or nutrition.
Wow, I'm starting to see how just that mindset shift
Yeah.
can change your whole perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that knowledge is all around us,
That's cool.
just waiting to be discovered.
Okay, so the world is our classroom.
Mm.
But what about, like, our actual environment? Does our physical space, like, affect how well we can learn?
That's a really good point. And something Hoganex and other sources really emphasize is creating a dedicated learning space.
Okay.
A physical environment that really helps you focus.
I can relate to that. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm trying to work in a cluttered space, I can't think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Hoganex actually dives into the psychology of space.
Interesting.
They talk about incorporating things that inspire you,
Oh,
whether it's bookshelves filled with your favorite books, or art that sparks your imagination,
Oh, I like that.
or even a plant,
Yeah.
just to bring a little bit of nature in.
Yeah, a little life into this space.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's about making it your own.
Yeah, personalize it. It's
Yeah.
about making it a space where you feel both comfortable and stimulated.
Right, that balance.
Yeah, where you can really immerse yourself
Yeah.
in the learning process.
Wow. I'm realizing this is about so much more than just books and classrooms, right?
Absolutely.
It's like this whole mindset
Yes.
and this way of approaching the world.
It's about nurturing your curiosity, understanding how you learn best, those inspiring goals, and a space that supports it all.
This has been incredibly insightful. And I bet our listeners are like, okay, tell me more. How do I put this into action?
I know, right?
What else do our sources have to say about this journey of becoming a lifelong learner?
You know, building on that idea of the right environment,
Yeah.
I think it's important to address the internal environment too, right? Like what's going on in our heads.
The mental space.
Exactly. Positive attitude to learning. They really get into this.
Okay.
They talk about the power of positive self-talk.
That makes sense. Like, you can have the perfect desk set up,
Yeah.
the most fascinating book in front of you.
Right.
But if you're telling yourself, I'm going to fail, or this is too
Can
hard,
be a struggle.
you're already setting yourself up.
Exactly. And positive attitude to learning gives you actual strategies to shift those negative thoughts.
Okay, like what?
So, for example, instead of saying, ugh, I'm terrible at math,
Right.
try saying, math is challenging for me, but I'm going to put in the effort to get better.
Oh, so it's like reframing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's subtle, but it totally changes the dynamic.
It's like from I can't to I can work on it.
Yeah. It's going from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset.
Growth mindset, yes.
Believing that you can improve with effort and practice.
I think that's so important,
Yeah.
especially when you're trying to learn something new.
Absolutely. And positive attitude to learning emphasizes celebrating those small wins.
Yeah.
It's not just about the end goal. It's
Uh,
about acknowledging the progress you're making, the skills you're developing, the effort you're putting in.
It's so easy to get caught up in that end goal.
Yeah,
But if you don't enjoy the journey, it's going to be hard to stay motivated.
exactly. And they encourage you to focus on the process, not just the outcome.
Yeah.
Finding the joy in the learning itself.
I like that. It's like savor it.
Yeah,
Enjoy the process.
exactly.
Because it's not always easy.
Right. Especially with difficult subjects.
Yeah. I'm seeing this theme emerge, cultivating that love of learning. It's not about passively sitting back.
No.
It's about that active engagement, being curious, being willing to try things,
Yes.
even if you mess up.
And speaking of messing up,
Okay.
one of our sources, 5 Ways to Inspire a Love for Learning in Students, they talk about embracing failure.
Ooh, that's interesting. We're always taught to avoid failure.
Right. Like it's a bad thing.
Yeah, like it's the worst thing,
But how can we reframe that? See it as a chance to grow.
especially in learning, yeah.
Exactly. The article has some strategies for that.
Okay.
One is to encourage taking risks, experimenting.
Ooh, okay.
Teachers can do this by letting students try different approaches, test out ideas, and learn from their mistakes.
Without the fear of judgment.
Exactly. No penalty for messing up.
That's so
It
important.
creates a safe space.
Yeah.
Failure isn't the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's just feedback.
Right. Like, okay, this didn't work. What can I learn from this?
Exactly. Course correct and try again.
I like that. It's not, you got this wrong. It's, what did you learn?
Yes. Focus on the effort, the progress,
Yeah.
not just the right answer.
It's that growth mindset again.
Exactly. Embrace challenges, setbacks, or opportunities. Believe you can improve.
Yeah, that makes sense. And learning isn't linear, is it?
Right.
There are going to be bumps along the way.
Absolutely. And speaking of making the journey more rewarding,
Okay.
10 Ways to Inspire a Love of Learning, they have this cool example.
Oh, tell me.
It's about this young girl who was obsessed with watching toy review videos on YouTube.
Oh, I've seen those. My kids love those.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
But how do you make that an active learning experience?
Right, because it seems so passive.
Right. Just sitting there watching.
Yeah.
Well, the author encouraged her daughter to make her own toy reviews.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, they filmed them, edited them, even shared them online.
So she's not just learning about toys.
No.
She's learning about video editing.
Yeah,
Storytelling.
exactly. It's like taking something that seems purely recreational
Right.
and turning it into this valuable learning experience.
I love that. So it's not just about what you're learning about.
Yeah,
It's about finding ways to be active,
exactly.
to do something.
Participate,
Yeah.
create.
Okay, this is so different from like the old school image of
Right.
sitting in a classroom taking notes.
Exactly. And that traditional model of education with all the rote memorization and standardized tests,
Yeah.
it can actually kill that creativity and intrinsic motivation.
It's like sucking the joy out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do we move beyond that then?
Well, a lot of our sources talk about the importance of community and collaboration.
Yeah.
Extreme Leadership Institute, they have this great concept of love communities.
Yes. I remember that. But can you unpack that a little more? Like, what does that actually look like?
They imagine these communities as spaces where passionate learners come together,
Yeah.
share their enthusiasm, and support each other.
I love that.
It could be a book club, a group of hobbyists, an online forum, whatever.
So it's about recognizing that we don't have to learn in isolation.
Exactly. An Extreme Leadership Institute emphasizes the power of shared experiences.
Mhm.
Like, imagine history buffs going on a trip to see ancient ruins, or writers attending a workshop together.
Yeah.
It deepens the learning and creates those
It's
connections.
like taking those online communities offline.
Yeah, and forging those real
Now,
bonds.
what about those of us who don't have access to those communities?
That's a good point. An Extreme Leadership Institute says be proactive, create your own.
Uh,
Don't wait for someone else. Start a book club, organize a workshop, find people online.
I like that. We have the power to create those
E-
communities.
Exactly. It's empowering.
Yeah.
It's about taking charge of your learning.
Okay, so we've talked about the community aspect, but even with all that support,
Yeah.
there's still an element of like personal responsibility, right?
Absolutely. Positive attitude to learning talks about designing your learning space,
Okay.
but they're not just talking about your desk and chair.
Okay, what else then?
They talk about creating a mental space
Oh, interesting.
that is safe, supportive, conducive to exploration.
It sounds like we're talking about mindfulness now.
You got it. It's about quieting that inner critic.
Oh, I need to work on that.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah.
Embrace curiosity, approach learning with playfulness and an open mind.
So it's like creating a sanctuary in your mind,
Yes,
a place where you can explore freely without judgment.
I love that. Where your curiosity can run wild.
Exactly. And this mental space, it's not fixed.
Yeah.
It's something you cultivate over time.
Right, it's a practice, like
Okay.
anything else.
It's about self-awareness, recognizing those patterns and obstacles.
So it's about becoming the architect of your own learning, both internally and externally.
Beautifully put.
Okay, that's powerful. Yeah, and a huge part of this internal landscape is your imagination.
You know, it's funny you say that because Einstein said imagination is more important than knowledge.
Perfect quote. Learning isn't just about the facts.
Yeah.
It's about using your creativity to make connections, see things differently, imagine possibilities.
It's like tapping into that childlike sense of wonder again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And several sources talk about nurturing that imagination.
Okay, how do we do that?
Open colleges suggest things like writing poetry, composing music, making art, even just playing pretend.
Oh, I love that.
It's about breaking free from traditional learning, expressing yourself.
Yeah.
And Open Colleges says don't just consume creative works,
Okay.
create your own, write stories, design games, choreograph dances.
So it's not just taking it in.
Yeah.
It's about putting something out there.
Exactly. It deepens your understanding.
It's about taking ownership.
Yeah. And it builds confidence.
It's about recognizing that each learner is unique and giving them those opportunities to express themselves.
Exactly. It can really ignite that love of learning.
And speaking of igniting a love for learning,
Yeah.
Teach Beyond, they have this really inspiring story.
Oh, tell me about it.
It's about this teacher who went above and beyond
Okay.
to encourage a student's interest in Bible study.
Wow.
And years later, that student who had struggled in school became a pastor.
No way.
And he credits that teacher's support
Wow.
with igniting his passion for learning.
That's amazing.
It's like that ripple effect, right? One person can make a difference.
Exactly. And Teach Beyond says we can all be those catalysts for learning,
Oh, I like that.
whether it's through formal teaching, mentoring, or just sharing our own passions.
It's contagious, that enthusiasm.
It is. And it reminds us that learning isn't just a solo thing.
Yeah.
It's a shared experience, a journey that connects us.
I love that. It's
Yeah.
like we're all part of this big interconnected web of knowledge.
Beautifully said. And it brings us back to those love communities where that shared passion can really flourish.
It's about creating environments where people feel safe to ask questions, share what they know.
Exactly. And those communities can exist online too.
Right.
With technology, we can connect with people all over the world.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Break down those geographical barriers.
It's like we're weaving a global tapestry of knowledge.
I love that image. And it shows how technology can democratize access to learning.
Yeah.
Break down those barriers, create those communities that transcend borders.
This is so inspiring. But as we get deeper into this, I'm wondering,
Yeah.
what about self-reflection, like looking inward?
That's a great point. Positive attitude to learning is all about that.
Okay.
They say self-reflection is key to understanding how you learn,
Yeah.
what your strengths and weaknesses are, what's holding you back.
It's like being your own learning detective,
Yes, it's developing that metacognitive awareness.
right? That awareness of your own thinking.
Exactly. They suggest keeping a learning journal.
Oh, I like that.
Track your progress, reflect on challenges, celebrate your
It's
wins.
like a roadmap of your own learning journey.
Exactly. And they also say get feedback from others,
Oh, yeah, that's so valuable.
whether it's teachers, mentors, peers, whoever.
Yeah.
That outside perspective can be so helpful.
Yeah, you might not see things that other people do.
Exactly. And it reminds us that learning is a collaborative process.
We're all in this together.
Right. Yeah. And this brings us to a key part of self-reflection.
Good.
Being honest about your motivation.
Oh, that's a good one.
Why are you learning this? What's driving you?
Yeah, because it can't always be fun and games, right?
No, there will be tough times.
Yeah.
Empower Your Journey talks about extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation.
Oh,
Extrinsic is that external stuff like grades, rewards, fear of failure.
the classic carrot and stick.
Exactly. But Empower Your Journey says there's a more powerful kind of motivation.
Oh, what's that?
Intrinsic motivation. The drive that comes from within.
Okay, so like your own curiosity.
Yes. Your passion, your sense of purpose.
It's about finding those things that light you up,
Exactly.
where you're like, I need to learn more about this.
Yes. And Empower Your Journey says one way to tap into that is to connect your learning to your values,
Ooh.
to the things that you find meaningful.
So it's not just learning for the sake of learning.
Yeah.
It's learning to make a difference.
Exactly. And they suggest setting goals that align with those values.
Yeah.
Finding learning experiences that resonate with you.
Yeah.
And surrounding yourself with people who inspire you.
I like that. It's like creating that positive feedback loop
Yes.
where your passion fuels your learning and your learning fuels your passion.
And it brings us to another important piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
Your emotional well-being.
Oh, yeah, we touched on that earlier.
Right. Positive attitude to learning really emphasizes creating a positive emotional environment for learning.
Okay.
It's about cultivating those feelings of joy, curiosity, excitement.
So it's not just the cognitive side of things.
No.
It's about how you feel.
Exactly. Your emotions can either help you or hinder you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they give strategies for boosting those positive emotions.
Okay, like what?
Things like practicing gratitude, focusing on your strengths, celebrating your wins.
It's like shifting your mindset from I'm not good enough
Yeah.
to I'm capable and I'm growing.
Yes, exactly. It's about self-compassion.
Yeah, we're all a work in progress.
Right, and every step on that learning journey is worth celebrating.
I love that. It's not just about the destination, it's about enjoying the ride.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the internal stuff, the external environment, community, even emotions.
Right. It's a lot to consider.
It is. But there's one more piece of the puzzle I'm curious about.
Okay, what's that?
Technology. It's changed everything, hasn't it?
It really has. And Empower Your Journey spends a lot of time talking about the impact of technology on learning,
Okay,
both the good and the bad.
so let's start with the good. How has technology empowered us as learners?
Well, the most obvious is access to information, right?
Yeah, it's incredible.
We have this vast library of knowledge at our fingertips.
It's mind-blowing.
It is. We're not limited to what's in our local library or textbooks anymore.
Right.
And Empower Your Journey also talks about personalized learning experiences.
Ooh.
With online platforms and adaptive software.
Yeah,
You can learn at your own pace, focus on your interests.
it's tailored to you.
Exactly. It's not one size fits all anymore.
I like that.
And it can connect you with others who share your passions.
Yeah.
Online forums, groups, virtual communities.
Right, you're not limited to just who's physically around you.
Exactly. And it makes learning more accessible for people with disabilities.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah. With assistive technologies and online platforms, there are so many more opportunities.
That's fantastic. Technology can be such a powerful tool for inclusion.
It really can. And Empower Your Journey also talks about creating more interactive and engaging learning experiences.
Okay, I'm curious, like, what are some examples?
Think about virtual reality simulations or gamified learning platforms.
Oh, yeah. It's taking learning from passive to active.
It's like you're in it, not just watching it.
Exactly. And it can be really fun.
Yeah.
And Empower Your Journey points out that technology can also foster creativity.
Okay. In what way?
Think about all the digital tools we have now for making art, music, videos, even coding.
Right. We have so many options.
It's amazing. We're not just consumers of information anymore.
Right.
We can be creators.
That's empowering.
It is. But Empower Your Journey also acknowledges that there are downsides to technology.
Okay. Like what?
They talk about information overload, distractions, and the erosion of critical thinking skills.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in the rabbit hole of the internet.
Right. So much information, so many notifications, it can be overwhelming.
And it's not always accurate information.
Exactly. So, empower your journey really emphasizes the importance of digital literacy,
Okay.
being able to navigate the online world critically, evaluate sources, separate fact from fiction.
That's so crucial, especially for young people growing up in this digital age. Absolutely. And they also talk about the importance of balance.
Okay.
Technology should not replace those human connections, face-to-face interactions, hands-on learning.
Right? We can't let it take over everything.
Exactly. It's a tool.
Yeah,
It should enhance those connections, not replace them.
I like that. So the big question is,
Yeah.
how can we use this powerful tool, technology, to actually foster a love for learning?
Great question. And several sources talk about how technology can create those love communities we were
Oh, yeah,
discussing.
the online communities.
Exactly. Extreme Leadership Institute highlights things like online platforms and social media
Yeah.
for creating those virtual learning spaces where people can connect.
So you can find your tribe, even if they're not physically near you.
Yes.
That's so cool.
And Extreme Leadership Institute also talks about personalized learning pathways,
Okay.
using technology to create those individual learning journeys.
So it's like a custom designed learning experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tailored to your interests and goals.
That's awesome.
And they talk about how technology can democratize access to education.
Oh, right, making it more available to everyone.
Yeah, breaking down barriers of geography, cost, disability.
That's really important.
It is. And they also emphasize creating a sense of community and belonging.
Okay.
Even online, people need to feel connected.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And technology can help with that, especially for people who might feel isolated.
It's like creating a virtual support system.
Exactly. And Extreme Leadership Institute also highlights using technology for collaboration.
Okay, so working together online.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's about moving away from that competitive model
Right.
and embracing a more collaborative approach.
I like that.
And they talk about using technology for feedback and reflection.
So getting input on your work and thinking about your progress.
Exactly. Online assessments, peer feedback, digital portfolios.
Oh, I like that. It's like having a digital record of your learning journey.
Yeah. And it empowers learners to take ownership of their learning.
And they talk about using technology to create engaging experiences.
Yes. Those virtual reality simulations, gamified learning.
It's making learning fun.
Exactly.
And they talk about using technology to foster creativity and innovation.
Absolutely. Those digital tools for creating art, music, videos, everything.
Right. It's like the possibilities are endless.
They are. And Extreme Leadership Institute also talks about connecting learners with real-world experiences.
Okay, like how?
Things like virtual field trips, online mentoring, project-based learning.
So they're not just learning in a bubble.
Exactly. They're seeing how their knowledge can be applied.
Bridges that gap between the classroom and the real world.
Exactly. And it inspires them to become active citizens.
That's really cool. So it sounds like technology can be this incredibly powerful tool for cultivating a love of learning.
It really can.
But as with anything, it's about using it thoughtfully and intentionally.
Exactly. And Extreme Leadership Institute is really clear about that.
Okay.
Technology is not a magic solution.
Right.
It's a tool that can be used for good or bad.
So it comes back to that human element.
Yes, we need to guide how it's used, make sure it's supporting our goals.
And not just becoming a distraction or a replacement for those real human connections.
Exactly.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. We've talked about so much.
I know, right?
But there's one more topic I want to touch on.
Okay.
It's one that always sparks a lot of debate. Standardized testing.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. And several of our sources talk about it.
Okay, so let's start with the arguments in favor of standardized testing.
All right. Well, proponents often say it's a good way to measure student learning,
Okay.
to see if they're making progress.
So it's like a snapshot of their achievement.
Exactly. And it can help identify students who need extra help.
So it's like a diagnostic tool.
Yeah, in a way.
Huh?
And they also argue that it holds schools and teachers accountable.
Okay, so it's about making sure everyone's doing their job.
Right, making sure students are getting a quality education.
And they say it can level the playing field?
Yes,
Yeah.
because it's a common measure. You can compare students from different schools and backgrounds.
So it's like a standardized yardstick.
Exactly. And they argue that it prepares students for the future
Okay. How's the...
by testing the skills and knowledge they need for college and careers.
So it's aligning education with what's needed in the real world.
Exactly.
But empower your journey also points out the criticisms.
Oh, yeah, there are a lot.
Like what?
They say it can narrow the curriculum, encourage teaching to the test.
Right, it's all about getting those scores up.
Exactly. and it can create a lot of stress for
Oh,
students.
absolutely.
And they also point out that it might not accurately reflect all types of learners.
Okay.
Some students are creative thinkers,
Right.
or they excel in areas that aren't easily measured by a test.
So it's not a perfect system.
Definitely not. And Empower Your Journey stresses using the data ethically
Okay.
to support students, not punish them.
It's not about labeling kids.
Right. It's about using the information to help them grow.
So it's about shifting the focus from assessment for accountability to assessment for learning. I
Exactly.
like that. Using data to inform teaching.
Yes. And they encourage us to have a bigger conversation about the purpose of education.
That's a good point.
What skills are really important in the 21st century?
Yeah.
How can we measure those effectively?
Right. It's not just about memorizing facts anymore.
Exactly.
It's about those broader skills like critical thinking, problem solving.
And Empower Your Journey really pushes back against using standardized tests as the only measure of success.
Yeah, it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Exactly.
So how do we cultivate a love of learning in a system that often feels so focused on those tests?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yes.
And our sources offer some ideas.
Okay, tell me more.
Open Colleges suggests more project-based learning.
Ooh, okay.
Let students explore topics in depth, solve real-world problems.
I like that. It's more engaging, more hands-on.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it develops those 21st century skills.
The collaboration, the critical thinking.
Yes. And Open Colleges also talks about giving students more choice and autonomy.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Let them choose topics that interest them, do their own research.
It's just tapping into that intrinsic motivation again.
Yes. And they emphasize creating a supportive environment
Okay.
where students feel safe to take risks and make mistakes.
It's that growth mindset.
Exactly. Mistakes are opportunities for learning.
And Open Colleges suggests more hands-on learning.
Yes. Science experiments, building projects, art activities.
It's about engaging all the senses.
Exactly. Learning isn't just in your head.
Yeah,
It's a full body experience.
I like that. And they also talk about connecting learning to the real world.
Yes. Through field trips, guest speakers, service projects.
So students can see how what they're learning matters.
Exactly. And it helps them develop a sense of purpose.
And Open Colleges also talks about using technology in a way that enhances those authentic learning experiences.
Yes. Technology should be a tool, not a replacement.
Right. It's about finding that balance.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's about finding that balance.
Right. Using technology as a tool, but not letting it overshadow those important human connections and those hands-on, creative experiences.
Yeah. It feels like so much of what we've been talking about comes back to this idea of shifting our perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about what we're learning, but how we're approaching it.
I love that.
Yeah, like how we frame those challenges and cultivate those qualities that help us grow.
You're so right. And positive attitude to learning actually spends a good chunk of their time talking about this,
Yep.
creating a positive emotional environment for learning. They say that cultivating feelings of joy and curiosity, even playfulness, can really make a difference.
It's interesting to think about emotions and learning
Yeah,
because we usually think about the cognitive side, the thinking part.
right, the intellectual part.
Yeah.
But our emotions can really affect how we learn.
They can totally sabotage us, can't they?
Absolutely. Think about a time when you were stressed or anxious. Could you focus? Could you learn something new?
No way.
Probably not. So positive attitude to learning says creating that positive emotional space is so important.
So how do we do that? How do we cultivate those positive emotions while we're learning?
They offer a bunch of strategies,
Okay.
like practicing gratitude, focusing on your strengths, celebrating those little wins along the way.
Oh, I like that.
It's about being kind to yourself.
Yeah, like having that inner cheerleader instead of the inner critic.
Exactly. And they also talk about mindfulness in learning,
Okay.
taking a moment to pause, be aware of how you're feeling, and approach things with an open mind.
It's like hitting the reset button, right?
Exactly. Clearing out that mental clutter so you can be more present.
Especially in our world where there's always something vying for our attention.
Right. We're constantly bombarded with information.
Yeah. And speaking of connection,
Yeah.
there's one more thing I want to bring up from our sources
Yeah.
that fits so well with this love of learning thing.
Yeah.
Mentorship.
Oh, I love that. Several of our sources mention mentorship,
Yeah.
like 5 ways to inspire a love for learning in students, and that Teach Beyond video.
Yeah.
They both highlight how powerful a mentor can be.
It's true. Having someone who believes in you, who challenges you,
Mhm.
it can be a game changer.
Absolutely. And Teach Beyond really emphasizes that mentorship is about more than just teaching someone a skill.
Okay.
It's about fostering those inner qualities that support a love of learning.
Like what?
Curiosity,
Yeah.
resilience, a growth mindset, believing in yourself.
It's like passing the torch, right?
Yeah.
Inspiring someone else.
Yes. And it doesn't have to be a formal thing like teacher and student.
Like you can be anyone.
Exactly. It could be a colleague, a friend, a family member.
Anyone who inspires you, encourages you to grow.
Yes. And it's a two-way street.
Oh, how so?
Mentorship can be really rewarding for both people.
Okay.
You get to share your knowledge, connect with someone, see them grow.
It's like contributing to that web of knowledge and connection.
Exactly. And as we wrap up our deep dive today,
Yeah.
I think the biggest takeaway is this. Cultivating a love of learning is a journey, not a destination.
I like that. It's ongoing. It's evolving.
Exactly. It's a lifelong pursuit of knowledge and growth and becoming the best version of yourself.
It's about embracing that curiosity, that thirst for knowledge.
Yes. And finding that joy in discovery.
It's not just about the information. It's about who we become along the way.
Beautifully said. If there's one thing I want our listeners to remember,
Yeah.
it's this. Never stop exploring. Never stop questioning. Never lose that sense of wonder.
That's a great note to end on. And to our listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Share your aha moments, your learning journeys, the people who have inspired you on our social media. Until next time, happy learning.